see? Of course I understand the game needs to be fun. What do you think I am, a MOBA developer? Well, the thing is, in my time I've heard a lot of game ideas and pitches from amateurs and indies and people interested in breaking in, and I'm frequently astonished by how often the primary loop just isn't considered. Recently, I was enlisted by a friend who runs a game design course at a local high school to take a look at some game pitch ideas that some students had made, and there were some interesting concepts. Let's make a horror game about a dude being chased by demons representing his sins. Let's do an RPG with management elements where you add towns and villages to your kingdom as you go. None of them knew what to say when I asked what the primary loop was. We start the game, we're given control. What happens next? I don't know, just standard movement and combat. What does that mean? Where's the camera? How fast can we move? What kind of combat? Real time, turn based, ranged, melee? Do enemies come in waves or stand around waiting in groups like penguins in a cold snap? Look, we've all got big ideas. We all want to recreate the crazy expansive AAA games that influence us, but if you're not thinking about your primary loop, a big idea is all you will have. Because like I said last time, don't build a house from the roof downwards. Actually, it's more like trying to build a house before you've invented the brick. Yeah, think of it like that if it helps. The primary loop is a brick, the secondary loop is a wall, and the tertiary loop is a room. To bring up Mario 64 again, the developers of that did not start by saying it's a game about Mario rescuing a princess and, I don't know, jumping's involved, start making levels. They started with Mario by himself, and they iterated and iterated until just moving him around was fun to do. So that's my advice. Start with an empty room, put a dude in it, then keep fiddling with his movement physics and his animation and the little dust clouds that come up when he turns around too quick until you're thinking, boy, I could just move this dude around this empty room all day. Then put one single enemy in the room, 20 go to 10. Do all that, then think about scope. And if you're still taking advice, ideally do all of this before you run to a crowdfunding website with 2 bits of concept art and a bad attitude.
Worth it, right? Absolutely worth it. Um, so if it's of um, a better way to basically distill this whole lab would be in just that one description of the primary gameplay loop and how to design it and so many, even with the different layers and stuff like that. Like that is kind of where my mind is when it comes to development. I watched all of Yassi's Dev Diaries, and it is one of the best sources of game of development and thinking about development and just understanding basically the construction of games and how to build them and things like that and the mindset to have. He is all about simplicity and iteration and tinkering with your idea. And once it's fun, you're supposed to build upon it. So the gameplay loop is pretty much the foundation. Once the foundation is solid, you can build your game. Um, so essentially, that is what is attempted to be done with this. So let's talk about my game. And so, what is the primary gameplay loop, as it were? Um, let me talk about the idea. The game I'm making is based upon experience and things I loved as a child, which was pinball games. I was and still am. So I guess was isn't the word. I'm a huge pinball enthusiast. I am old enough to remember arcades, and while my brother was more into the fighting games, um, I really wasn't. I'm not really a mechanics video game lover. I don't love video games. Uh, just uh, just for mechanics, I like immersion and story and being drawn into things further and further. I'm a huge fan of more narrative building storylines, single player sort of stuff. But arcades grew in popularity when I was younger, mainly due to a lot of the fighting games, and it was the first type of multiplayer that you can really do. Um, was pretty much Street Fighter. Uh, Other than that, I don't can't really think of too many other games where you could play against the other. Um, uh, I might be wrong. Probably, who knows? Probably Gauntlet. Probably first. I don't know my timelines that great. Um, but I really wasn't used to playing with people. I played with my friends. So my brother and my friends would play stuff like Gauntlet and that sort of stuff. But that yeah, that kind of had like a purpose and a story. I like immersion. I like filling the shoes of the hero and escaping into a character. And if the character doesn't exist or is just one dimensional and flat, I really can't immerse myself or connect to that character. And especially after playing more modern games and seeing just the um, what people are just capable of doing by making by understanding the magic of gameplay and how it marries perfectly to provide metaphor or provide context or just to provide a different perspective on an idea that you can't get through any other medium. You're not going to be able to get the video game experience that you get from the cinema. Vice versa, they're distinct and unique in their own ways. But if we're going to look at value, um, we the industry speaks for itself. Video game industry makes more than like every other form of medium I believe almost combined. It's ridiculous. They're huge cash cow, which is essentially why they're just buying each other up now, and uh, we're seeing just this wonderful deluge of creativity coming from the indie world that seems to be picking up the slack when it comes to AAA and their need for money grabbing, quick, get rich quick schemes or quick richer schemes in which they provide microtransactions and other things upon the public, which is kind of like a poison pill when it comes to fun. Again, not trying to get on the soapbox here. I'm just thinking out loud because I'm. This is just yeah. This is all yeah. Okay. So what's the primary gameplay loop for this particular game? If it's pinball, am I making a pinball game? No. Yes and no. The idea essentially is uh, give me a second and I will give you show you one of the inspirations for this particular game. Uh, what is it? Pinball FX. There we go. Pinball FX Wizard. That's the one. It is janky and terrible, but I love just how expansive and well. Take a look. I'll give you a couple seconds to take a look and see how interesting these 3D pinball games are and what they and you'll see. let's let's skip to like something happening there. Okay, I guess I just need to be a little bit patient. Okay,
There's a secret maze here. I wonder what could be hidden in it.
now I know
We got lost.
this.
Can you round it the way out?
Now, anybody who's familiar with the actual pit with a pinball machine would know like this is a wonderful cheat of a playfield. Like it's interesting how they made this a cabinet look like a level,
We need some light.
and I love that. Like
Yes.
it looks like a level. They just turned a level into a pinball game, and
There's the X. I thought we would never see the sunlight again.
and they made it so there's narrative, there's goals, there are things to do. Um, the playfield usually has bumpers, ramps, lanes, spinners, all sorts of things. Like the just the depth of how a pinball, especially nowadays, is amazing. Case in point, bring to you. Let's take a look at the Twilight Zone as a pinball game. Pinball Arcade is like one of my Pinball Arcade is one of my favorite uh, pinball digital pinball developers. They license actual real pinball games and take each piece and digitize each piece and then build the and rebuild the machines. Yeah, they just rebuild the machines like they would exist in real life. So each piece is examined and placed, and it's a perfect recreation of the actual tables. And as you can see the containment. You're able to see the play field, but you see the cabinet. You see the play field and things like that. But there's so much stuff here, so much stuff happening here. There's wonderful lanes. There's the gumball machine. There's the magnets. This is one of the most. Why is Funhouse music playing? So I'm a pinball. I love pinball. I think pinball is fantastic. It's one of my favorite things of all time. And essentially, the idea is to take the principles of pinball and apply it to platforming. I know that sounds a little nuts, but hear me out. So let's go back to the other one. So imagine if you were to just remove this portion. So this is called the off lane. So if the ball goes out here and goes into the goes to the outfield, you lose a ball. And the flippers are pretty much the only thing that is preventing you from losing the ball, and it's up to you to control the ball and send it up ramps and essentially complete um, uh, different modes um, by either hitting targets or lighting things up and setting off different modes and stuff. I wanted to take this idea um, and essentially remove this portion of it, make this a complete entire level, expand it beyond that, and basically make it so a guy is essentially the flippers. So it would be basically a person. Imagine a person here holding like a bat-like flipper, and he has control of a magic orb that works as a ball, and he's able to run around the field. But ultimately, he has to keep the ball within the lane. Um, it's a little more. It's a little. That's the full idea. The simple version would just simply be um, just a box, um, and just basically a guy hitting the ball into objects and enemies and